Alright, Meat Shields, it's time to get cozy, because I've seen the comments, and I've seen the Tumblr fan art talking about when are you guys gonna cover the black phone too? Well, here it is, baby, so strap in because it's going digital. It's been 4 years since Finney Blake took down the Grabber, one of the most infamous villains in modern history. You'd think things would return to normal, but after a run-in with the man that some call Albert Shaw, Finney's family and community will never get over the trauma of what happened in October of 1982. Things go downhill when Gwen starts receiving calls from the black phone in her dreams. And now the entire family must travel to the snowy mountains of Camp Alpine Lake to see what the deal is. It's gonna be a cold one, so grab that blanket, some quarters for the payphone, and let's break down the mistakes made, what we should do, and how to beat the ghostly Grabber in Black Phone 2. So we start off back in 1957 with a young Hope Adler ringing someone up on, yeah, you guessed it, a black phone. But the strange thing is, she doesn't even know who she's calling. She's been working as a counselor at Camp Alpine Lake, and she got the number from a bizarre dream where it was carved in the ice. But before she can find out who it is, the call suddenly cuts out. And I guess you could call that getting ghosted. Am I right or am I right? But when we jump forward to a high school parking lot one day in 1982, that's 4 years after Finney smoked that freaky-ass dude the Grabber, and this time it's Finney giving someone the works. Bro's apparently entered his Batman era while he's been dealing with the trauma of getting grabbed up, and meanwhile, Pops decided to put down the bottle and become a real family guy. But as for Gwen, she's been having nightmares of some brutal attacks that happened at none other than old Alpine Lake. And she sees a vision of a ghost kid carving the letter W on the ice. Suddenly she wakes up to the sound of a phone ringing, and it's coming from somewhere outside. But Finn catches her standing at the front door and tells her sister to go back to sleep. Alright fam, now we all know the first black phone was low-key a banger, so obviously I had to run it back for round 2. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this one is starting off pretty rough. Like, the Grabber was freaky enough when he was just a regular dude, but now that Gwen's back to dreaming about ghost kids on some Five Nights at Freddy's type and she doesn't even know why, I'll admit that does make things pretty difficult. Now normally this is something I wouldn't even be trying to mess with, like a bunch of creepy ghost kids at a campground in the snow. Yeah, I'm good off whatever Stephen King or Friday the 13th type stuff that they got going on here. So if it was me personally, I'm probably going to the doctor to get my head checked and maybe cutting back on watching all these scary movies. Yeah, but for Gwen, it's not that simple. Like, we already know her dreams are more than just dreams. So if she ever wants to get these ghost kids to chill out, she's gonna have to figure out what the hell they want. So from her dreams, she knows they're at a place called Camp Alpine Lake, but one thing this movie kinda skips over is how she figures out where it is. Like, she does end up finding a pamphlet with the address, but I don't think they ever say where she got it. So this got me thinking, like, what would I do here? It is the 1980s, so I can't look it up with Google Maps, which means sadly I'm gonna have to go to the library. Now I know that does sound boring, but back in the day, the library was lit! You get it? The librarian was basically the closest thing there was to ChatGPT, so I might be able to dig up a map or like some old newspaper stories that could tell me where the camp is. Oh, and if that doesn't work, I'm still not even tripping, because the next thing I'm gonna do is stop by the local church. Like, it was really only the Boy Scouts or church groups that would run a camp like this, and since they weren't wearing uniforms, it's obviously a church camp. So it only makes sense that the local church might know about it. And then once I got the address, I'd have to get out there and solve the mystery, so these ghost kids would leave me the hell alone. The next day, Finney's coming out of the store when the payphone starts ringing, but he picks it up and says, "I can't help you," before immediately hanging up. As he walks away, we see that the phone is actually out of order. Well, that night, Gwen wakes up from another nightmare, where this time, the spirit carved the letter B. And sure enough, the phone is ringing again. So she follows the sound out past a horrifying dead body and tracks it all the way back to the Grabber's house. She lowers herself down through the open window and picks up that old black phone. And to her surprise, it's her mother's voice on the other side. Now we see the other side of that conversation from the very beginning, and it turns out that Hope was actually talking to her own daughter, but in the future. But just like before, the call abruptly drops out. Well, Gwen turns around only to find herself face to face with the ghost of the Grabber's brother, and suddenly the door swings open as somebody starts coming down the stairs. But she snaps out of it when Finney comes to wake her up, and he explains that he followed her when he saw her sneaking out. But when they look at the phone, it doesn't even have a handset, so there's no way she could have actually picked up. And even though she tries to explain, Finney still refuses to hear her out. So the next morning, Gwen finds a pamphlet from Camp Alpine Lake, and it turns out that they're hiring counselors for the winter season. So her plan is to apply for jobs there and then go scope the place out. Finney, of course, is not too happy about the idea, but they find out from the old man that their mom used to work there. And now this gets Finney's attention. So when the day comes that Gwen is leaving for camp, he changes his mind at the last minute and decides that he's coming too. So Finney and Gwen head off into the mountains along with their buddy Ernie. He's Robin's little brother, you know, the karate kid from back in the first one, and he's got a little crush on Gwen even though they both try to pretend like he doesn't. Well, things start getting pretty treacherous when the wind picks up into a blizzard, so Finney hops out to lead the way, but that's when they see this badass chick named Mustang pull up on horseback, and she leads the gang the rest of the way to the camp. Alright, now you're probably wondering, when's this dude, the Grabber, gonna show up? And trust me, you guys, he's coming, and it's gonna be good. But real talk, the fam's already off to a pretty rough start. I mean, normally I'm gonna be on Finney's side with this one, like going out to some random campground full of ghost kids does sound like how you get chopped up with the machete. So personally, I'm gonna play it safe and stay right back at the crib. But yeah, I know, they gotta go solve the mystery and blah blah blah, but if I'm going out there, then I'm actually gonna make sure that we are prepared before we leave. But first things first, we're gonna need some Skrilla, and that's our first problem, because the fam isn't exactly swimming in that moolah. Like, Pops is out here doing what he can to put bread on the table, and I do respect that. It's nice to see old boy turning his life around, but they don't have the paper to get kitted out, so we need to find a way to get their money up, and I know exactly what they can do. So Ernie over here did just cop some concert tickets for him and Gwen, and I'm not gonna lie, that is some pretty serious game, but right now, rizzing her up ain't at the top of the priority list. So the first thing we gotta do is turn around and sell those tickets for maximum profit. And then we've gotta cover the basics. I'm talking about snow chains and extra gas for the car, a couple maps, some shovels, flashlights, warm clothes, you know the deal. Also, we gotta get some winter sleeping bags, extra food and water, and I'm thinking each of us should have a go bag with food, water, and survival gear for 3 days at least in case we have to dip out early. Oh, and let's not forget, we're going out here chasing ghost kids, and who knows what else might show up. So you already know our boy is gonna be strapped. Now, they're all too young to go pick up a blick from Walmart, but I'm definitely bringing some baseball bats and some walkie-talkies so that they can stay in touch at all times. And we gotta bring some anti-ghost stuff too, like a cross, maybe some holy water, and then at least I'd feel like we'd actually have a chance here. Well, it turns out that camp is canceled because of the weather, and they're the only ones who didn't get the memo, so yeah, it looks like they're stuck up here until it clears up. So the owner, Armando, leads them over to the cabins, and on the way, Finney notices that same black phone that his mom was calling from back at the beginning. Now, since it's a co-ed camp, they have to split up the boys and the girls, which means that Gwen's gonna be sleeping on her own, and it's already getting pretty late, so after showing them their bunks, the others head off to bed. But it isn't long before she has another nightmare, and this time the ghost shows her the letter H. Meanwhile, Finn's up late when he hears the payphone start ringing, and as he walks towards the booth, the light suddenly goes out. While back inside, his sister starts hearing a weird noise coming from inside the cabin. He tries ignoring it at first, but when he turns around, the light comes back on, and the phone starts ringing again. So this time, he picks it up and tries hitting decline like usual, but nah, I guess Casper's got something to say, because that's when the phone starts ringing non-stop. And when he finally picks it up again, he suddenly realizes that it's none other than his old buddy, the Grabber. So Finn starts tweaking as soon as he hears the guy's voice, but the door slams shut and traps him inside. And while he's out there trapped in a glass case of emotions, Gwen decides to peek under one of the bunks. But then out of nowhere, bam! There's a ghost kid under the bed. And as she tries to get away, another one appears and grabs her arm. And they keep showing up until she's backed into a corner with nowhere left to run. But Finney finally gets out and runs to help his sister. And he finds the poor girl completely traumatized by what happens, so he brings her over to the boys' cabin to spend the night. But what's crazy is she's got a bad burn where the ghost grabbed her arm, which means her nightmares are actually dangerous, on some like Freddy Krueger type stuff. And when Finn won't listen, she goes over to old Ernie boy for a shoulder to cry on. She gets to praying for some help with her nightmares, and Ernie decides now's a good time to start rizzing her up again, like weird timing bro, but you know, game's gonna game I guess. But just when they're about to kiss, Finney chirps up like, "I'm over here bruh, chill." So it looks like they'll have to save their first smooch for another time. Hey, you guys. Thanksgiving is nearly here, and it's making me hungry. The holidays in my house are always chaotic. Sometimes people just be popping in from the neighborhood, dropping gifts off like a scene straight out of Goodfellas. Wise guys asking me so many questions about my life, like, what are you gonna do when you grow up? Who's the best Batman? It's Keaton, by the way. And I think this is the first time I truly felt anxiety, and not really understanding that feeling kinda shaped my holidays to come. And while being anxious is just a part of growing up, I wish I had someone to help explain these feelings and get me to talk about them. Thankfully, I made it through, and now I have today's sponsor, BetterHelp, to get me through even more anxious moments. BetterHelp can set you up with a therapist who will listen, ask questions, and help you see things in a new light, and give you advice on how to make positive changes in your life. To get started, you fill out a simple questionnaire and you'll get matched with a therapist in as little as a few days. Once you meet your new therapist, if it isn't really the right fit, you can easily switch to a new one at no extra cost. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. And if you just can't stand the sight of Aunt Bertha or Uncle Charlie around the Thanksgiving table, let BetterHelp prepare you by speaking to somebody that you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/howtobeatyt and get 10% off your first month of therapy. I hope you guys can check it out, and now back to the show. Yeah, all right, now it looks like we're getting to the good stuff, and it looks like our boy the Grabber just pulled up to run it back on Finney and the squad. But this time, he's in his Freddy Krueger era, and he's popping out in their dreams. Now, right off the bat, the fam started selling the moment they split up into different cabins. Like, I get that it's the state law to separate the boys and the girls, but honestly, who cares? I mean, it's also against the law to wreck someone with a machete, but I don't think Jason gives a shit. Plus, I'm pretty sure the law only applies when the camp is actually open, and in a damn blizzard, when the place is shut down, Armando and his peeps should be more worried about safety than anything else. And that's not to mention we've got Gwen over here riding bikes halfway across the town in her sleep, so like the last thing we need is her getting up and disappearing in the middle of the woods. So, sorry, but we're all bunking together whether they like it or not. And like, what are they gonna do? Kick us out? We literally can't leave, people. And then we've got my boy Finney getting bullied by a phone booth. Like, bro, if that's how we're starting out, we're gonna be in some trouble. Like, we know we're dealing with some kind of ghost stuff, right? And what is something that ghosts and spirits are always trying to do? They're always trying to lure you away from everybody else so that they can trap you up somewhere. But me, I'm gonna be thinking one step ahead. So before I'm picking up that phone, I'm gonna wake up Ernie to watch my back. I'm also gonna grab something to stick in the door so it can't shut, and bring like a rock or a hammer or something in case I need to break the glass. And if the phone starts ringing so much that it's making me start tweaking, I'm just ripping out the damn cable. And then the Grabber's gonna have a real hard time making any more calls. But what makes this even scarier is that Gwen can actually be hurt in her dreams, so she needs to figure out if it works both ways. Earlier in the movie, we saw that Gwen's been studying up on dreams and spirit dimensions, so she most likely already knows about lucid dreaming. But in case you aren't familiar, lucid dreaming is when you become aware that you're actually in a dream, and then you can just pretty much control whatever happens. So let's say I'm Gwen. Then the next thing I see these ghost kids pop up, I'm gonna realize, wait, I'm in a dream, and from there, you guys, it's pretty much over. Like, I'll just take control of my dreams, make these ghost kids help me solve the mystery, and bam, it's a wrap. The next morning, Finney's kinda heated to find out that Ernie already knows about their little secret. You know, the ghost phone stuff. But when Finney's all like, hey, that's my personal business, it somehow turns into Gwen roasting him for having 0 friends. Well, he realizes that it's worse than he thought when Gwen rolls up her sleeve to show him the burn. But they're interrupted when Armando calls them up for breakfast. Dude seems chill enough at first, but he calls Gwen out for sneaking to the boys' cabin and warns her not to do it again. He's actually low-key sus about why they came out, like they're clearly not with the church group and all, so he's confused how they even found the place. Well, Finn eventually explains that their mom used to work there, and although he doesn't remember her name, Armando instantly recognizes her when he sees a photo. But he's heartbroken to hear what happened and seems to throw him off their trail for now. But just when he's about to leave, Finn asks about the payphone, and it turns out that that old piece of junk hasn't worked in over 10 years. Finn's just telling the others about last night when he hears the payphone ringing again. So he goes outside while these these two wait back in the lodge. He picks it up, expecting it to be the grabber, and he's about to start cursing dude out when he realizes that it's actually one of the ghost kids. So Finney switches gears and starts asking little bro what's good. It turns out it's all three of them calling from the other side, and they start begging Finney for his help, but they can't seem to remember who they are or what happened or anything. And they all start banging against the booth until he finally hangs up. Meanwhile, Gwen calls the old man back to check in, and after seeing a news report about the blizzard, he decides to borrow a company truck and go rescue his kids. But dude has absolutely no idea what he's really getting into. Afterwards, she asks the other two workers, Ken and Barbara, if they have any books about the camp's history, but Barb's already got some major beef with our girl after finding out she was in the boys' cabin, and she's acting mad passive-aggressive about answering their questions. She even gets more pressed when they start asking about the ghost kids. But Gwenny just decides to keep matching her energy, but since they clearly aren't getting anywhere, her and Ernie decide to split. Alright, well, just when they thought it couldn't get any worse, now they have to face their biggest op yet. A Karen. And I hate to say it, you guys, but Barb's low-key got a point. Like, she's trying to run a campground here, not a true crime podcast. So, what'd you think? They're just gonna have detailed records about the time when a dude went crazy and whacked a bunch of people? Like, oh yeah, we've got a whole book about it up in the gift shop. I mean, be for real, you guys. If anything, they're probably keeping that stuff under wraps, because, like, it's gonna be pretty hard to stay in business if everyone knows a bunch of campers got chopped up, right? And these ghost kids aren't bringing much to the table either. Like, you really can't remember your names or anything. You gotta do better than that if you're asking for my help, dude. So yeah, it seems like they pretty much hit a dead end, but then I thought about it and I realized that there's still one person that they haven't tried asking. Mustang. Like, obviously, they're not gonna get any help from Karen at the front office, but Mustang's another kid their age who probably doesn't have any friends out here besides these two. And she's probably dying to talk to somebody who isn't a total narc. Plus, if anyone's gonna know all the spooky lore behind the campground, it's gonna be the owner's niece. Right? So if I was there with Gwen and the boys, then I'm gonna be trying to get in tight with Mustang, and then Gwen can talk about her dreams and see how she reacts. She probably knows something that can at least get them pointed in the right direction, but even if she's totally clueless, it never really hurts to have an extra meat shield on deck in case shit pops off. That night, Gwen's lying in bed when, you'll never guess it, the phone starts ring-a-ding-dinging again, and in her dreams, she sees her mom on another call, but this time she's already talking to the ghost kids. That's when one of the boys appears and leads her to the spot where his run got ended early, if you know what I mean. Then another one shows up and does the same thing, but suddenly she wakes back up in the cabin and sees a vision of her mom posted up in the doorway. Meanwhile, Finney wakes up to hear the phone ringing for real this time, so he sends Ernie over to watch his sister while he picks it up. But Gwen leaves the cabin and starts chasing the third ghost across the camp. So by the time that Ernie gets there, she is already gone. This time it's Finney's old friend, El Grabberino. And he's still hella salty about getting packed up by a 13-year-old kid. Like, bro, try playing COD sometime. I promise you'll get used to it. But he says that he's lured them out there on purpose because he knew they'd be trapped by the storm. And now he's out there looking for revenge. But while those two are busy catching up on old times, Gwen follows the ghost into the cafeteria, when all of a sudden, the grabber walks out of the shadows, and he starts taking swings at her with an axe. Dude takes her down with his belt and pins her to the floor when the others burst in on the scene, but old boy ain't exactly shy, and he starts just absolutely whooping her right in front of everybody. I mean, he's whipping her around and launching her into stuff like a freaking wrestling match, and the whole time the others can't even see him, so they're just watching as this invisible dude keeps piecing her up. But when he starts pulling her towards the ovens, Ernie finally decides to step in, and the grabber just starts throwing pots and pans across the room to keep them back. But with some help from Mustang, he's able to hold on, and the grabber suddenly disappears just as Finn gets there. It kinda looks like they're safe for now, but the whole thing has Gwen traumatized as hell, and the others decide that it is time for a group meeting. Yeah. You think? It looks like the grabber's back to spin the block. And I'm gonna just be honest, you guys, they completely threw this first match. I mean, I know I addressed this already, but seriously, why are they still sleeping in separate cabins? Like, are we deadass for real? It was already dumb enough before, but once they figured out the grabber was back in ghost form, yeah, I don't care what Armando says. We're all sticking together, and he's just gonna have to deal with it. But when Gwen decided to follow the ghost kid instead of getting some backup first, that was the moment when she really up. Like, girl, what are you doing? Your friends were literally right there, but nah, I'll just follow this dude into an obvious death trap instead. Like, what? But now this might look like a tough situation, like what am I supposed to do if bro's literally a ghost type shit? But as we'll see later, the grabber actually has a physical form. So even regular people can straight up whoop dude as long as you can find him, and that kind of changes everything. So Gwen has the biggest advantage of all because she's the only one who can actually see him. And let's not forget, you guys, Finney packed this dude up when he was 13. So if I'm Gwen here, then as soon as this guy shows up, I'm gonna just grab a weapon like a frying pan or a glass bottle or something, and we are about to squah up. But right now he's at full power, so I might not be able to really fully defeat him, but that doesn't mean I still can't piece him up. Like, I'm gonna just dodge his first strike, then start giving Buddy the works with whatever I can find. And if things get a little dicey, then I'll just pop my ultimate and pull off his mask. Yeah, then old boy's gonna be spazzing out trying to find it, and I'll just murk him. Easy. But then we got her friends who just showed up on the scene and found her getting rocked by the invisible man. Well, just because I can't see him doesn't mean that he can't catch these hands. So the first thing I'm gonna do is start throwing tablecloths, flour, cooking oil, anything that's gonna show us where he is. And then we all just team up and jump him, nice and simple. So yeah, I'm gonna have to talk this over with the squad before the next fight and make sure that they know that bro's really not that bad. And the next time he pulls up, he's gonna be hella surprised when we start rocking his shit. So Armando gathers everyone in the chapel to discuss what the hell just happened, and it turns out they've all seen some pretty weird stuff here at the camp, but this is something different. So he asks Gwen to tell him everything she knows. Well, as she's telling him about her dreams, he realizes that she knows details about the cases that nobody else seems to know besides him and the police, which could only mean that these kids are telling the truth. But just when he thinks that he's heard it all, Finney asks if he knows anything about the grabber, and bro suddenly realizes that he is talking to the Finney who smoked the creep 4 years ago. So yeah, this is all some pretty mind-blowing stuff, but they're still not sure how it all comes together. Well, that's when Armando takes down an old photo from when their mom worked at the camp, and who's posted up in the background but none other than that motherfucking grabber. Finney recognizes this dude's face right away, but back in those days, they called him Wild Bill Hickok after the famous gunslinger, and he worked at the camp as a maintenance guy. So Gwen puts it all together and realizes that WBH was actually his initials, and that's what the ghost kids were trying to tell her. So it looks like the grabber got his start here at the camp. And all the weird stuff started happening about 4 years ago, around the same time that Finney put him in the dirt. So after the grabber died, his spirit must have come back to the camp. But if they can find the bodies and put the ghosts to rest, then Gwen thinks that it'll take away his power. From her visions, she knows the bodies are under a frozen lake, but Armando says that there's only one lake nearby where they keep any kind of tools, so they decide to go out there first thing in the morning and take a look around. Sometime later, Armando's back in his office praying for help to find the boys, but that's when his radio starts picking up the grabber channel. At first, it's just static, and then the sketchy shadow outside turns out to be nothing but a harmless snowman, but then a voice says, "Look what you made me do." And it's not T-Swift, y'all. It's the grabber, yeah. But Armando just hops on the mic and starts yapping right back at him. And then the lights go out. So when Armando grabs a flashlight, he turns around just in time to see that damn snowman smash its face against the window. But my boy's still not even worried, and now he's even more determined to find those bodies. He ends up finding Finney outside just pondering his life and sits down to give Son a little advice. He's noticed that Finn's got that anger in him, and he doesn't want him turning to the dark side. So he says the most important thing is to face his fear instead of running from it, and only then will he be strong enough to face the grabber. Alright, so now we know how it all comes together, but tell me why, even after all of that, they're still splitting up to do their own thing. Like, maybe I'm just tweaking, but did we all not just watch Gwen getting tossed around the kitchen like she was fighting the freaking Undertaker? I mean, she almost got stuffed in the oven like a damn Thanksgiving turkey. And now we're all just back to business as usual? It's like they're trying to do Grabber's job for him. Like, maybe it's just me here, but after having this whole conversation about how the evil spirit of an old maintenance guy was back on the block and handing out fades like a barbershop, I'm thinking we should probably stick together. You know, like smart people. But nah, you do you, I guess. But Finney and Gwen just learned something pretty important here. They figured out that the grabber lured them here because the spirits of his victims give him power. And that's when I realized, like, you guys, just leave the camp. Like, if this is the only place that he can hurt me, then I'm gonna just go somewhere else. But sadly, it's not that simple because the roads are still covered with snow, so they can't drive out. And like, maybe they could try hopping on some horses or like skiing out of there or even grabbing some snowshoes, but it seems like a pretty long trip to the nearest town. So they'd probably just end up getting lost and wind up dead anyways. So for now, I guess they gotta stay. But here's the thing, the grabber only seems to attack at night when Gwen falls asleep, so during the day, they've got nothing to worry about. But sooner or later, Gwen's eventually gonna knock out. And when that happens, we all gotta be ready. All right, so here's what I'm thinking, right? First off, we all stay in the same cabin, and put somebody on guard so he won't catch us slipping. Now his biggest advantage is his invisibility. But I'm gonna be one step ahead. So I'm gonna cover the whole floor in flour and set up bottle traps all over the room. That way we'll immediately know where he is. Then I'll have blankets, more flour on deck to throw on him once he pulls up, and that's when we can just jump on him and start rocking him with hockey sticks, axes, power tools, whatever we got, while one of us starts splashing Gwen with water and trying to wake her up. And that should be enough to hold him off until we either find the bodies or get the hell up out of here. So first thing in the morning, the crew sets out to go search the lake, but they work literally all day without finding anything, and they head back to the camp feeling pretty lost. That night, the boys decide that they're gonna sleep in shifts to keep an eye on Gwen. I mean, she's pretty worried that the grabber is gonna come back, but Finney tells her if the dude shows up, then Gwen should just knock him out in her dream, and he promises to have her back in case anything happens. Well, about 2 minutes after she falls asleep, Gwen starts having, you guessed it, another nightmare, but this time it's that kid Billy from back in the neighborhood. You know, the kid who got grabbed while he was out delivering the papers. Well, it turns out there's more to the story, and is about to get real interesting up in here. This is when Gwen wakes up, but it's not Gwen, it's her mom, and now Gwen's seeing things from her perspective. It's late at night, and she watches as Hope gets up and quietly gets out of bed, but when she tries doing the same thing in reality, Ernie is there to stop her. In the dream, Hope sneaks out of the house, and when Gwen follows, she finds herself outside the crib of none other than the old grabster. That's right, you guys. Hope has figured out Bro's identity from her dreams, and Gwen watches as she pulls up and sneaks over to the basement window. Well, sure enough, Mom spots the paperboy all locked up in grabber jail, so she gets up and starts booking it back to the car, but that's when the grabber jumps out from behind his van, and he pulls her inside before she can get away. But then the ghost grabber gets out and motions for Gwen to get inside, so that's exactly what she does, and that's when things take an even darker turn. So now they're all driving along like some kind of f***ed up family road trip, but it seems like the grabber just wants to talk. He says he wants to do Gwen a favor by telling her the truth before she dies. And I think by now you can probably guess where this is going. Well, the truth is, their mom didn't actually self-uninstall, the grabber killed her, and he set up the whole thing to make it look like she did. Needless to say, Gwen is absolutely horrified, and she watches as her dad comes out and finds her mother's body. But now she knows the truth, and it's time for the grabber to finish what he started. Alright fam, now I know this is some pretty mind-blowing stuff here, but I had to jump in real quick because unfortunately, there's something we need to talk about. Now, I'm not trying to blame the victim here, alright, but let's just be honest, because I know we're all thinking it. Gwen's mom, she kind of f***ed up here. I'm sorry I have to do this, like I really am, but girl, what the hell was that? Like, her heart was obviously in the right place, and I get why she couldn't tell her husband because he was in his whole dreams are evil era, but still, I mean, was that really the plan? Like, alright, so if your dreams are right, then this guy is a dangerous freak who's been kidnapping people and sticking them in his basement. So I don't know, how about just for a start, maybe we don't park in his driveway? Or better yet, how about we just wait until daytime? You know, like when he's not home, then go up and check it out. And I love how dude just casually has the window open, like no blinds or anything. It's like he's not even trying to hide it. But the worst part is, she was so close to getting him caught. Like one phone call to the cops, and this all would have been over. So yeah, as much as I hate to say it, Hope kind of f***ed up on this one, I ain't gonna lie. So the grabber explains that this actually isn't a dream, it's more like an alternate reality that he created out of nothing but pure hatred. And if there's a question he's been waiting to answer, if he smokes you in here, do you death screen in real life? Honestly, he doesn't even know, but there's only one way to find out. Well, Gwen takes off through the house as the dude comes walking after her, but when she hits the back door, she finds herself back in the grabber's basement. So Gwen ducks into the restroom, but there's literally nowhere else to go, so it doesn't take the grabber very long to find her. Realizing that she's cornered, she tries ducking through the hole in the wall, but she can't break through to the other side, and the grabber takes a little chop at her arm that starts gushing blood out in real life. But just when it looks like she's done for, one of the ghost boys comes and lets her out. Yeah. Now she finds herself back on the frozen lake, and we see Armando still out there searching for the bodies. Well, right at that moment, he actually finds one floating just under the ice, but that's when Gwen hears a phone ringing, and she looks over to see the damn phone booth posted up in the middle of the lake. So homegirl walks over there to pick it up, but that was her biggest mistake, because the grabber just locks her in there. All of a sudden, Armando plunges into the freezing water, and the grabber just starts pushing dude under, while Gwen's over here trying to punch her way out, but it gets worse, because once the grabber is done with Armando, he walks over to the booth, wraps the cord around Gwen's neck, and sends her spinning around like a damn Beyblade, with blood just flying all over the place. Meanwhile, in real life, the others are trying to wake her up when she hears Finney telling her to fight back. But that's when it happens, you guys. Gwen finally digs deep and unlocks her next form. This is when the entire booth explodes and sends the grabber flying back as Gwen starts going all 11 up in here. And after hitting bro with a nasty headbutt, she just pulls herself back into reality. But they still have to save Armando, so they all rush out to the lake and find him clinging to the ice. And luckily he's still alive, and they bring him back to the camp to get him warmed up. Later that night, Finney finds Gwen out pondering by the lake when they see a truck come driving into the camp, and boy are they surprised when they realize that it's their dad. He says that he came to take them home, but now Gwen is refusing to leave, and no matter what Finney says, there's nothing he can do to change her mind. That's when Dad brings up their mother, and Gwen decides that it's time for them to know the truth, so she drops the news that Mom didn't self-delete. The grabber murked her and set the whole thing up. So yeah, needless to say, everyone is pretty shocked, but knowing this completely changes everything. Oh yeah, and now that it's personal, they decide that it's time to slide for their mom. Alright, now I can see why the grabber's been putting up such crazy numbers. Bro has been playing in bot lobbies for real. Now, before we get to the plan, I gotta roast my boy Armando for a second, because of all the dumb stuff we've seen them do so far, this one honestly has everybody beat. Like, how brain dead do you actually have to be to go out on a frozen lake alone at night when you know the grabber's ghost is out there just waiting for you to slip up? But as for the others, Gwen just made a major breakthrough, because now she knows how to actually fight back. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm with Finney and his dad on this one. I mean, think about it, right? The grabber specifically lured them here because his victims give him power. And he literally said his goal is to murk Gwen to get back at Finney. So the safest thing to do is just get her out of there before he comes back. Like, before they couldn't leave, but now that Dad is here, nothing is stopping them from just hopping in the truck and going home. And it's not like the bodies are going anywhere, so why not head back to the crib, spend some time training and getting some supplies together, and then come back in the summer when the weather clears up and the lake thaws out, and finish solving the mystery then? I mean, at this point, it's pretty much like just play it safe, hop in the whip, dip out of there, and come back later when I'm more prepared. But if we're still going out there, then I'm at least gonna be ready to scrap. So first, we gotta get everybody kitted out with some hockey pads and some weapons. That way, they'll be ready to fight when this dude pulls up. Then we need to cover the ice with sticks, rope, nets, or some other random objects, so as the grabber comes shredding along, the stuff might trip him up. Then they just have to stick together and let Gwen work her magic, and they should be able to survive this easy. In the morning, they all head to the lake and pull the first body out of the ice, but there's still 2 more down there, and no matter how hard they try, they can't seem to find them. Now it's getting late, and there's still no sign of the bodies, so Gwen decides there's only one thing left to do. And before they can stop her, she lets herself fall asleep. And sure enough, here comes old Wayne Grabsky skating across the ice. But as he starts going after the others, Gwen slides down and drops into the water. He sends Ken flying straight into his wife, who absolutely busts her grill on the solid ice. And after giving them both a little chop across the noggin, he goes over to the hole and starts shattering the ice around it, causing the cable to fall into the lake. Dad rushes over there to help, but he notices the grabber going after Finn. And before he can get out of the way, Buddy hits a stick flip right over the wagon, wrapping his belt around Finney's neck and pulling him off the back. So Ernie grabs the reins and is all like, "Watchow!" as he starts trying to get Gwen out of there, while the dad jumps in the water and starts helping her pull the barrels up. They manage to get one up to the surface while Finney's over there fighting for his life, but that's when he realizes that he can just whoop his ass. So he kicks Buddy off as the others get the third barrel out of the water, and now that they've found all 3 bodies, Gwen hops out of the lake and tells the grabber that it's time to scrap. But as he starts skating towards her, the bodies keep popping up and tripping him, and he looks up to see 3 ghost kids just as Gwen buries the axe in his skull. But he's not done yet. yet. Reaching down, she pulls off the grabber's mask, revealing his hideous zombie face, and dude starts freaking out as he tries to get it back, but the ghost kids are not letting go. And that's when Finney comes over to finish him off. Even though he can't see him, Finn grips Buddy up and starts absolutely smashing his face into the ice over and over again. I mean, he is seriously letting this dude have it. And after completely murking him for the second time, he holds the grabber down while Gwen chops his foot off with the axe. And with that, Finney launches Bro into the water as he reaches for his mask just as the ghost kids drag him under. But he ends up frozen in the solid ice, and it looks like they've finally defeated him once and for all. That's when Gwen wakes up back on the wagon, and she and Ernie finally get a chance to have that smooch. The next morning, Armando calls the families up of the missing boys to let them know that they've been found. Meanwhile, Finney and Gwen are just about to head home when that damn phone booth starts ringing again. But this time, only Gwen can hear it. And when she nervously goes to pick it up, she's shocked to hear their mother's voice on the other end. Hope says that she doesn't have long, but she tells Gwen that she's up in heaven. And now the 3 ghost kids are finally there as well. She says that she's proud of her for smoking the grabber. And before it cuts off, she tells Finney that Robin says hi. It's a super emotional moment for both of them, but it's nice to know that the victims' spirits can finally rest. And the family pulls away from the campground, ready to start a new chapter in their lives. But if there's one lesson we can all learn from what happened, it's that sometimes the only way to face your greatest fear is by giving it the hands. So yeah, The Black Phone 2, what's up? Solid movie. Now, I will say that I would like The Black Phone 3 to maybe focus on a different cast of characters. Like, Finney and his sister are cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they both got their revenge on the grabber. But like, when you think about Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, you basically got Freddy Krueger in a brand new movie with a bunch of different kids, a new body count. And I feel like that is what The Black Phone needs. But other than that, I'm going back to Tumblr to submit more fan art that I just drew. But yeah, that's it. If you guys would have done anything differently in today's episode, you need to let me know what it is down in the comments below. Other than that, thank you for watching. I'm Ben. We'll see you guys in the next episode, and have a damn good day.